is my video forum for ethical violations and board discipline. Some of the most common cases that I saw that were common instances for counselor discipline was sexual misconduct, unprofessional misconduct in general, as well as consent forms and inappropriate diagnosis, or when counselors or therapists overstep their bounds for diagnosis. I decided to go with the state of New Hampshire for the case that I went with. And in this case, the therapist was told by an adolescent client of hers that she had counseled for years upon the start of her parents' divorce, that her father sexually assaulted her. And this therapist allowed the client to stay at night with her in her home when this event took place. And that's because she wanted to make sure that the client was no longer in contact with the father. She also said that she didn't report these allegations to the appropriate parties or appropriate boards, as well as the police, because she didn't want the client to be released back in her father's care. The therapist did discuss the next steps with the client's mother, but she failed to report these allegations to the board immediately like she's supposed to. She waited 2 to 5 business days, or 2 to 5 days. And then prior to this, the therapist also coordinated educational support for this child. Who was under 18, she drove the girl from school to tutoring and then back to her home on several occasions, as well as took her out to dinner on several occasions, which basically she just overstepped her boundaries for the client counselor relationship. The ACA codes that were violated were A5D, A6B, A6C, and the state code violated, basically she violated the fact or the rule of not getting so involved that you can no longer be objective. That is very important to the mental health counseling role, and once you lose that or waver in that, it's not as effective. It's not as effective for the client. Also, once she got overly involved in this client's life, she entered into a dual or multiple relationship with the client outside of just being her counselor. And as well, when you do that, because at that point you're at a place of impairment, when you do that, you're supposed to seek supervision for consultation about how to either take next steps with this client, how to shift from the client relationship, or what exactly to do. And she did not record this in any of the recordings for the client's records, nor did she seek supervision. The outcome of this was several different things. The therapist had to agree to not treating patients under 18. She had to pay a fine of $7,500. She had to participate in 42 hours of continuing education, and she also had to order or undergo psychiatric evaluation to basically figure out whether or not she was competent or able, mentally and emotionally to do her job. And she was suspended. Her license was suspended for 10 months. There was a lot of back and forth after this. The father was basically out for a vengeance for several different reasons, but it did end there. And both the code of ethics say that both of the code of ethics, the state codes as well as the ACA, say that the counselor is responsible for keeping themselves accountable and monitoring their own balance and their ability to recognize their own impairment. And once they do recognize, again, they're supposed to seek counsel or seek a supervising counselor to go to for consultation. And she never did that. I guess my question is, being a counselor, we're going to be involved in these people's lives and their issues. We're servants at heart. We're also very compassionate, empathetic individuals. How do we as counselors stop from crossing that boundary, especially when you get years into, or not, I would think it probably is harder initially when you're starting off your career. Like, how is it how can you stop from crossing those boundaries? What things can you put in place to make sure that you're not getting overly involved with the client, past the degree that is acceptable? And so that's my question. Thanks.